Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to. We're going over the hugely popular next generation visual overhaul by Biggie Boss. And we're going to be looking at mods used that really make this mod list stand out and how you could potentially recreate it. Every mod I mention in the video or notice will be listed down in the description, along with this Discord for you guys to join and bug him with questions. So without further ado, let's dive right in. First, because of course this is a visual overhaul, we're going to go over the environment, which is rich with textural enhancements. From grass to the trees. The trees, although is the mod Ulvenwald, which can be a little heavy in FPS, but it adds a plethora of new trees for every different biome in Skyrim. With the best ones being around Folkvangr, my opinion is put into that is biased. Of course, Riverwood and Folkvangr are very similar also to each other, but Folkvangr is more dense, so the trees kind of stand out more there to me. And the snow trees of Overhaul are a little bit off-putting for me. They're not my favorite, but hey, it's an all-in-one and most of it looks beautiful. So it works with their grass, which is also a mix of multiple grass mods for a patch. You'll see a bit of Folkvangr and Skoglendi, if I said that correctly. And he went and combined these with Vinland grass patch. That pretty much marks them as ESL so that you don't have to do it yourself when you install Webjack. But as you know, Vinland grass patch does require Flora Orientals, which kills FPS for everyone, even 4080s. But Biggie made an edit that actually removed it from the grass patch, so you only see those two, which is also his own personal patch that you'll only see in this Webjack alone. But of course there is a little bit of also Cathedral 3D grass library, just to add that here and there. The shrubs placed all over the forest is a mix of two mods from Traverse to Overhaul, which as I mentioned is all-in-one, which you could pretty much use on its own with nothing else. But the other flora mod that's mixed in with this, for the ferns specifically, is Shrubbery Symphony. And that mod does a lot more with flora, but the ferns is definitely from that mod. The flowers though, those are Cathedral mountain flowers, but the reason they look different from what you're used to is because this is the alternate texture version, which just opens the flowers. It's a pretty simple change, but if you didn't know about this mod, you wouldn't even know that this was Cathedral. And it'd be kind of a crime if I didn't at least mention the fact that he added in Northern Roads and also made it work perfectly. Because you see, Northern Roads has kind of been a hit or miss for a lot of people, but when you can get it to work together with no issues in clipping, it is absolutely beautiful. And with the water, there's two mods that come to mind. Well, technically three. There's Natural Waterfalls, which overhauls the ugly waterfalls in Skyrim with a more natural look. You'll end up enjoying this mod, especially since it's an all-in-one now for every DLC land. It is kind of big, around 150 megabytes, but it's definitely worth it in my opinion. But combined with that is Water for ENB, which is the absolutely essential mod and pretty much everyone's go-to now. I'm not really sure how to better explain this mod than it being absolutely beautiful. And the third mod I mentioned is the mod Waterplants, because all flora mods are welcome for a great visual overhaul. We just need someone to add Mihail's frogs to these waterplants as a type of vlad so they can't be killed or fall off. Then it'll be great. Another mod that I instantly noticed from this mod list was WiZkiD Hunter Camps Overhaul. This might be the first mod list I've actually seen use this mod, and it definitely fits this list. There's so many more visual overhaul mods this mod list has, considering it is over 1200, but I want to keep this short and sweet. And we got a lot more to cover. Like up next, we're going over the changes to the cities, which are pretty small, but you'll end up loving it. Like the biggest trade central has been perfectly overhauled, Whiterun. With new textures and plants from Cathedral, they kind of blend in here since plants are everywhere in this place. The biggest texture here that was used was Riton Whiterun, which is actually one of my favorites. It's not the one I currently use, I use Illustrious, but this one is definitely a close second. But he did overhaul the walls with the classic HD Remastered Whiterun walls, which kind of makes sense here because their walls does look better. I myself have a different texture than mine I use for the walls, but I could definitely see myself using this one also. And we can't forget he changed Whiterun's Gildergreen to Blubbos Gildergreen because it desperately needed a change, and it still kind of reminds me of the vanilla look even though it's much better because Blubbo makes everything better. Over at Windhelm, not many mods were actually used besides fixed mods, but pretty much everyone has those, but this place has been completely overhauled even though only using a few. Like Riton's Windhelm for textures, which is what I actually use in my mod list because in my opinion it's probably the best Windhelm. And the snow covering the ground, if you were wondering, is Icy Windhelm. I generally don't use Icy Windhelm, but considering how much snow Windhelm gets in Skyrim, this makes so much sense from an immersion standpoint. But Riton's Windhelm is really what ties this place together, keeping that rustic look that Windhelm always had without making it look too brand new with the textures, because the textures will make it look a little new, but not too bad. Of course, we have RYFTEN next. For the textures, we have RYFTEN and Ratway by WiZkiD, and based on the title, you can already see how this overhauls nearly every single texture in RYFTEN, including the Ratway, which most mods have separate, but this one, it's an all-in-one. But he did make sure to grab the 2K version, which also includes parallax. But I do want to say he did override it with Skyking's Riften Complex Parallax Overhaul, which also is pretty good. I'm not entirely sure which one is which, but those two are mixed together with Skyking overriding, so most likely you're seeing a lot of Skykings over Ratway. There is also a few miscellaneous mods, well, two come to mind, such as Riften with the Y windows. It's not actually in the title with the Y, but just so you don't confuse. It makes the windows more consistent around Riften, so you aren't getting a lot of different. Well, it's more like a fix than anything else, but there is also 3D docks and posts, which pretty much gets rid of all those rigged edges that you see when walking along a dock. I believe this touches other docks as well, such as Riton Solitude, but I could be a little wrong about that. But moving on to Markarth, probably the most anticipated considering it's the city with the most mods, maybe after Whiterun. But for this, not much was used. He combined a few mods such as Stony AF Markarth, and Dwemer Ruins and Markarth, or is it MRFS, but with the latter overriding it. These two combined pretty much overhaul every texture in Markarth, from the Dwemer Ruins to the Dwemer Pipes to just those simple tiles of Markarth that were always stretched and ugly before this. But I do want to add the Dwemer metal that you're seeing is actually ancient Dwemer metal, which actually is pretty hard to install because you have to grab mods from Legendary Skyrim and port it over to Special Edition and make sure it's in the correct order. It's a hassle, but I'm glad he got it to work, and it looks beautiful. And now for the real capital of Skyrim, Solitude. This city though was barely touched. Honestly, the only thing noticeable here that you'll see is different is the retexture, which you might have guessed is Riton Solitude. And I actually apologize to Riton if I've been saying your name wrong this entire time. There are parallax textures from Skyking that are mixed in here, but for the most part, this is Riton Solitude. There are a few mesh fixes also, but nothing too major that you would need. And I can't forget about villages like Riverwood or even Folkvangr, even though they aren't really considered a village. But here we are. They have been overhauled with the mod called Northern Farmhouses, making them look more Nordic and kind of modern if I'm being honest. This mod is usually a nightmare to patch, but because this is a one-click wabbajack, all the patching was done for you. The textures mainly look like WiZkiD Parallax Farmhouses, but there were some other small texture mods mixed into this, but the main thing you're seeing is WiZkiD, and the main thing that you were probably wondering about anyway was Northern Farmhouses. So there you go. The cities and towns of this wabbajack are absolutely beautiful. They're not fancy, but it still reminds me that I'm playing Skyrim. Biggie didn't add a bunch of FPS killers trying to make an already beautiful game even more beautiful, and I have to appreciate that. So now we're going to move on to interiors and lighting, which of course you can probably guess what was used, but it's still going to make a great list. For lighting we have Lux, which also requires Lux Via, which is also in this mod list. I just didn't show it because it was pretty obvious based on the showcases I was doing. But Lux has been a main staple of Skyrim lighting mods and in anyone's mod list. This lighting mod covers every interior in Skyrim, and it pretty much has a patch for every popular mod. Mainly because his Discord has a request channel and people put in like 20 mods a day and he usually does them, and it's constantly being updated with those patches. Lux overhauls the way windows work from interior, so you'll see lighting that matches what's currently outside if you have it turned on, and the way that lighting gets cast from the shadows, but this doesn't destroy your FPS surprisingly, unless you combine it with interior mods such as JK Interiors, which is great on their own. Separately, Lux and JK Interiors don't hurt your FPS, but together they destroy it because more meshes equal more draw costs, which means less FPS, but alone Lux is absolutely beautiful, and a must have. An NGVO uses it perfectly. Then on top of Lux there is Embers XD, which is also a must have. I feel like this is a bit of bias though, because Embers HD is also a great alternative, but nothing touches on the level of Embers XD and Lux picked together, and Biggie knew that when he was making these beautiful interiors for NGVO. The spark of the fire and the bard singing, it's a great way to get drunk and really get into your Skyrim character if you're into role playing. So maybe I'm blowing that out of proportion a little bit, but this webjack mixed two of the best interior lighting mods, because if you don't use Lux, Embers XD would definitely carry the visuals for you. But the third one for a complete look of the trio is Lux Orbis, overhauling exterior lighting because it replaces all lighting templates for exterior with that of Lux, so you'll see a better blend of colors. And this mod also features a ton of patches for other mods that you may want to add onto the mod list. Because what makes NGVO stand out from other lists is that this is just a visual overhaul. This list is meant for you to add other mods onto it to make it yours. Or you can play it just like you're replaying a remastered vanilla Skyrim. The choice is pretty much yours with this. And now with lighting out the way, we have the most important part of this mod list and probably what you're watching for, the gameplay and combat of this mod list. Like I said, this is just a visual remaster of Skyrim. There aren't many gameplay mods mixed into this, but I will go over the biggest changes from vanilla. And because I'm a little weird, I'm going to include character customization with the gameplay because it's the first thing that you'll notice when you join the game. But if you think I should make it a separate section next video, just let me know. The first mod that NGVO introduces in terms of gameplay is the mod Optional Quick Start. So you can choose to skip the beginning intro, only if you choose though, which is generally a must have in other lists because the intro gets super buggy with mods, but NGVO works with the beginning intro. So for people just beginning on their journey of modding, this list should be perfect for you. The character customization is where this shines, adding hundreds upon hundreds of new hairs and beard styles, and even remastering the vanilla hair with Vanilla Hair Remake. But this mod list also has KS hairdos, and also KS hairdos SMP to combine, which by the way also works as a standalone, so if you just want SMP hairs, you don't need the standalone KS hairdos. But he even added mods from Dent, which isn't even on Nexus, but it's still here. This character customization has pretty much something for everyone, and I'm going to be honest, with so many changes it might be a little overwhelming to people that's used to simple Skyrim, but for people that spend hours in customization screen just to take screenshots, this is going to be like heaven for you. After customization, I suppose we'll just pretty much jump all over the place with gameplay mods that I enjoyed while using this mod list, with the first being the Overhaul dragons. The dragons have been visually overhauled, not gameplay wise, to use Game of Thrones dragons. Still waiting on that DLC. Technically it's not a DLC, it's a mod, but still waiting on it. But the fact that they still gave us the dragons knowing we'd instantly love it is all I ever wanted in life. This mod is completely visual like I mentioned before, so it definitely befits the visual aspect of this WiZkiD, so the combat will still be as hard just like you're playing in vanilla. One thing I did notice with these dragons though is that with their size being increased, they kind of disappear into thin air if you're too close to them, which happens in vanilla also, but these are bigger than vanilla dragons, so it may happen more often than not to you. Nearly every creature in Skyrim has been changed in some way visually, but mainly textures. I just feel like dragons were the biggest change, and that's why I wanted to give them the most attention here. The only thing I'm waiting for is for Biggie to add 4th Unknown's new Trolls mod to the mix, but this list came out before that mod, so who knows, it might be in the next update. Maybe. In terms of combat though, my opinion is that it's amazing. NGVO has new animations for first and third person animations that pretty much smooth out vanilla combat. Of course there's no dodge mod or attack mod or combat overhaul, so it will be a little harder. But what I noticed is that you can play in first or third person with this list, and that's all up to you. Like you'll notice a mix of Vannergan animations for archery, and regular normal attacks like power attacks with swords. Even the dual animations is from Vannergan, but the magic, that's all Goetia. The only thing I didn't expect from this list is the new creature animations, which was a series that was wildly popular when it first came out because creature animations back then just weren't a thing. I'm saying back then like it was a few years ago, I believe it was just last year. But we're seeing more and more of these as of late, so this one hasn't been brought up a lot, but I'm glad to see someone is still using it. And now for my opinion on the mod list, something no one really asked for, but you're all going to get anyway. While this mod list is great, I would definitely not recommend playing this for low-end PCs unless you're okay with capping your FPS and playing on 1080p. Which isn't all that bad, but when I say low-end, I mean like me having to use the 1650 a year ago. I would have to watch my PC burn out, but that's pretty obvious with modding the way it is right now. There's nothing really this mod list can do about that. Every mod list is going to be heavy, except for ones that don't use any textures at all. But in terms of what this list has to offer, I 100% recommend this list to every new modder to Skyrim and even professional modders. This list is a 10 out of 10 when it comes to a base for Skyrim modding, because this list barely touched anything in terms of NPC changes or gameplay, which would cause a lot of incompatibilities, aside from basic utilities. So anyone will be able to download this list and just jump straight in playing. which is what I did. In literally less than an hour of me downloading it, I jumped in and had fun the entire time. So in my opinion, I'm going to give this a solid 9.5 out of 10. Just based on the usefulness and graphics and ease of download, because some WebJects are kind of a nightmare to get set up, but this one just wasn't. And that's pretty much it for today, guys. Let me know what you guys thought, because I plan to review every WebJect, even if it's bad or good. I'll never completely trash on a WebJect, but I will tell you my honest opinion. So if you ended up enjoying this video, make sure you hit that like button down below, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace and love, guys.